This is Redditor IndiePhil, and I'm just making a quick tutorial for the Reddit community on swapping skies out of this photo here, and I'm sort of targeting it specifically at this photo. There's a few different ways of doing sky swapping, but for this one in particular, there's a couple of really easy ways to do it. I've got the info panel up here on the right, and you can see that anywhere I put the cursor on the sky, it has the same RGB values, and that's really handy. Before I go any further, I want to mention to the photographer that posted this. He posted it as a panorama. I didn't notice it first, but there's one of the photos of the panorama stitching that seems to have a different color balance, a different white balance from the others. And now that I've seen it, it stands out like crazy. But I'm not going to spend any time on this video trying to fix it. But I guess if you're going to stitch panoramas, try and be careful to make sure the white balance settings and the exposure settings are the same, because now that I've seen it, I can't unsee it. But anyway, it's a really nice detailed photo, so let's go ahead and swap the sky out. So I've got another file. Actually I have a library of different skies. Some of them I've taken myself, some of them were on Flickr with the Creative Commons license or whatever. So take the other sky, do a Control A, which is select all. I mean, you can do these commands from the menus, but Control A, select all. Control C is copy, and then go back to your original file. Now what I've done is I've already duplicated the background. You pull the layer down into the new layer box, or you can do layer, duplicate layer, but I've already done that. So I'm going to select the bottom of the two layers and hit Control V to paste, and it's going to paste my layer in. If I hide the top layer, you can see it now. Control T will transform a layer, or you can do Edit Transform. And I'm going to hold Shift down to keep the scaling the same as I resize that layer. And I'm just going to make it a bit bigger than we've got. There we go. And if I turn that off and on, I can see where the horizon falls. And what I want to do is just move it down just a little bit so that the horizon falls in about the right place, and that way I won't see any of the land or much of the land poking through there. So I'm going to just move it down just a tad bit more. You could dick around with the opacity settings just to get that really where you want it. Anyway, first method for sky removal, piece of cake, double click the top layer. On a sky like this, which is really just broad white, this is super easy to mask through. You can use this blend if option in the layer style menu, and you just turn this one down until it sort of looks about what you want. You can go too far, because all it's doing is looking at the tonal value in the photo in the top layer and saying, if you're lighter than this tonal value, I'm going to make you see-through. Now you could go to the blue channel for that. I should go back to the grey one and fix that first. You can go just to the blue channel, and then it won't affect any of the greens until you get way down in there. But it doesn't really matter. In this case, it's basically white. You only have to go a little ways in there to get it to work. Now what you can do is hold down the Alt key. I apologize to Apple users because I don't know the Apple equivalents to things, and that splits this little slider bar, so you get a sort of fading effect, and that can help you to work in these edges a little bit. It still doesn't look very realistic though. We're going to just hit OK anyway and address that. It's too dark, and the original sky was obviously very bright, so there's this stark contrast in the details where you've got purple edges and you've got sort of leaves and bits that were sort of white around the edges. Now that purple stuff was in the original file, and we can eliminate that. There's even some cyan stuff in there too, and that's really just chromatic aberration from the lens. It's pretty typical, but it does make things look not very realistic. Now, instead of getting too fussy about that, the best thing to do, because that just doesn't look all that realistic anyway, having that much blue in the sky, is to go to this layer, and because we've got the original underneath, we can just turn the opacity down some, like that. And somewhere about 50% might be okay. But I want to address something else too. Another thing with realism is it really helps if it fades down to the horizon. I sort of addressed that while positioning it before. The other thing I can do is on this layer add a masking layer, and I've got my in my masking layer I've got my black and white set up. I hit the gradient tool, and I can just drag a line up, and it will blend some of that sky away back to the original layer there. So I just prefer that. It looks a little bit more realistic. That's just a simple masking layer on there. You can redo that mask over and over again in that masking layer. That's the kind of cool thing about the gradient tool, until you get it exactly the way you want it. So it's not non-destructive. Once you've done it and walk away from it, start diddling with other things, you'd have to delete that masking layer and redo it if you wanted to. But there it is. That's that. The other thing is I would go to this sky image that we're sort of stealing and borrowing or whatever, and I would bump the contrast up on that so I can see the clouds a little better, like that. Now that's going to push more color into it, which I don't want, so I can go to adjustments, hue, saturation. I can turn the saturation down a little bit, and I can even select the blues, and I can change the hue of the blues a little bit to something that I like. You can even then go back and sort of darken things a little bit. Really up to you what you want to do with that. So that's one method. And if you really wanted to get rid of some of the purple halos, I've got another video on the YouTube channel that mentions removing purple fringing from photos. You could go take a look at that one, and you would just select that top layer and work on that top layer for that. So that's the video in a nutshell. I'm going to do another version, another method of making the sky swap. So I'll get on with that here in a sec and give you that one too. Thanks.